So the setup for this is generally based off of the last session that we had during the week. Alkesha had just learned that Kev Kavan may be involved in shady, corrupt police dealings. Her being a young, idealistic peacemaker on the moon, she is trying to make sure that the youth get a fair shake, and she is generally a very angry person, looking up to her father as an enforcer of the law, finding out that he may not be enforcing it as strictly as he claims to, has caused her to fly into a young, rebellious panic, but rage. And her sister, Katie, has decided to back her up on their plan to beat up their father, both of them being heavily, heavily drunk. Kev Kavan, the basically top law enforcer on the moon, is a martial arts expert in a style called Drift that gives him basically telekinetic abilities. Based on range and distance and space between objects, he can manipulate that, and it's generally how he is able to do combat, even though all of their stands are small humanoids that sit on their shoulders or on their wrists and basically help them to calculate things very quickly. In Alkesha's case, it's to calculate angles and ricochet, and in Katie's case, it's to calculate probability, and in Kev's case, it's to calculate distance. We all have different stands for this fight, but they all have the same kind of like calculation threshold. And when I do these showcases in the future, I'm going to include more combat stands. None of these little stands are fighter stands. They're just little humanoids. They're like Elf on the Shelf, smaller even, with little angel or demon sitting on your shoulder. They're very tiny. They're not punch ghosts. They're more little side core calculator guys. So we'll say that for the sake of how this fight would normally be introduced, and I'm not going to do a whole big, role play or voice acting or anything for it, just to keep it brief. Alkesha has sent a text message to Kev that they need to talk and that she is very mad and that they should meet in the parking lot. Katie is coming along. They both plan to attack their dad. Kev, probably knowing the tone of the text message, has a slight idea that he may be in trouble of some kind. He knows his daughter's angry text message tone, if that such a thing could ever be read, and so he is slightly prepared but not all the way prepared for an actual throwdown fight. Once he makes his appearance in the parking lot where Alkesha and Katie are waiting, likely with a half-empty bottle of champagne, the fight pretty much has to begin here. The question is, how do we determine who starts the fight, or how do we determine initiative? In this case, usually what we do is we roll speed, but we're not rolling speed. And another thing that we do is we just determine it like logically, narratively. So if somebody comes into a room first, we give them initiative first. In 5e, people roll for this, and I've always thought it was ridiculous. If somebody goes into a room and then there's initiative roll off and they're the first ones in, there's no reason why they would be like the last one to act, no matter how low their dexterity score is. It makes absolutely no sense at all. If you can imagine going into a room with you got your guns out, like you're ready to just start shooting up the place, like, John Woo style, and then you roll bad, I guess, because you ate too much pasta the last night, and you just stand there while 50 goons are all shooting at you, and then your backup runs in behind you and they start shooting things while you're standing there frozen like an idiot. It feels bad, just gameplay wise to me, for that to be the case. So I've never really been a big fan of rolling to determine initiative. Just in like, it makes sense in some regards. Like, it makes sense. You got two sides facing each other, but in Fate, it doesn't always have to be the case. In this case, we're going to determine who gets the drop first by who initiates hostility, and who initiates hostility is going to be Alkesha, because she is drunk, she is mad, she is a bad girl who likes to party, and also is a cop, and is more than happy to tell you that she is a cop so that she can get discounts on drinks and food for her friends. So she's going to invoke, or basically get first hit. There are instances where, if we're determining this, you may have an aspect that you want to invoke that would give you priority. And I would be totally willing to understand and hear those, such as, like, if somebody tries to get a drop on you, you can say, yeah, but I'm a seasoned ninja is your aspect or whatever, and I know that's coming. And you explain that, that makes perfect narrative sense. I will totally be with that. So never feel like my word is technically, I'm not the last word on this thing. You can always kind of lawyer your way to through a situation. That's generally true of Fate as a whole. So let's go to the actual battle music, I suppose. So Kesha takes the first hit. Once she sees her dad, she immediately starts firing her gun. And one thing we didn't go over on Kesha's sheet, and I will real quick, is that she has stunt extras that I've never really gotten a chance to use. So she has a right gun and a left gun. Her right gun gives her a ricochet ability that will just bounce to hit other targets. And her left gun gives her another ricochet that makes it difficult for other people to escape because it cuts across their path of escape once it hits the target. So it'll hit them and then start bouncing around wherever they would be trying to run. That means that depending on what gun she's using, she gets an advantage. If she's using her right gun, she has a ricochet shot that will bounce and hit a second target. If she's using the left gun, she's making it harder for the target to leave. That's how that works. So in this case, she's using her left gun. Her left gun is called Out Alive, and her right gun is called Die Young, because of course she has to be full of Kesha references. She's using Out Alive, which means no one's getting out alive. She's firing a shot at Kev, and if it succeeds, it's going to cut off any chance he has of escaping, which, let's face it, he's probably not going to. Because she's working with Katie, she gets a +2 to her roll on a ricochet roll. Let's see what she gets. Good God, a 0. So she has a 2. She is drunk. I mean, I'm not going to use any fate points to invoke on this. So she gets a +2. Kev, I'm going to say he's going to use his drift to kind of move himself out of the way. And naturally he does. He does not only moves himself out of the way well enough, he also puts himself in a better position to counterattack on his next round. So he's going to get a +2 on his next round. So now not only did she sloppily miss a shot, but she's made him very aware and put herself perhaps off balance, or just him more on alert to make a very precise strike. Katie's turn is going to be spent calculating just how to best bother the father. In which case, we're going to give her an analyst roll, and this is something she'll want to probably spend fate points on. She's going to roll an analysis roll on Kev. Passive difficulty determined, we'll say generally by, on a scale from 1 to 4, how hard it is to read somebody. She's familiar with her father, but he's also super strong, and they probably haven't had an actual fight before. So we'll put it at a 3. So she gets a -1, not great, but we do have to give her +2. No, she's not working with Kev. She doesn't get a +2 at all. In which case, if we want to make this a good fight, then she's going to spend her fate points to meet that threshold, so that she gets to create 2 advantages over the next few rounds. So we're going to have her spend 2 fate points. One is she's going to invoke that enough is never enough. So when she's in the fight, she's thinking this isn't good enough for me. I'm better than this. Calculating is all I do. And then she's also going to invoke her aspect. My reputation is on the line. How dare you? So that she doesn't want to look like a chump in front of her sister, especially not in front of her dad as they're finally having a fight. So she uses 2 invokes. She's down to 2 fate points, and she has created a double advantage for Kesha on next round through her double rainbow stunt. Kev now gets to take his action. He has seen his daughters are now working against him, and he is going to use drift to push an automated car towards them to try and box them in. Using drift, he's going to telekinetically move an automated car to basically punch the side of it and drive it towards them to pin them towards, not dangerously, but enough to pin them in. If he succeeds on this, he's created an advantage on basically whichever one he wants, both of them. But it's an advantage he's only going to be able to use once. So he's using drift to create an advantage. 2. Oof. Yikes. I'm going to use one of his fate points to re-roll that. He is going to invoke Stern Father, because he wants to make sure that these are... You know what? Actually, looking at his sheet, he's not going to roll drift for this. He's going to roll detain. So that's a +4. What he's doing is really detaining somebody. He is using drift to do it, but I think detain would make more sense. So, yeah, we're going to just use detain for this, because I don't want to just have him one-shot his daughters. That makes more sense. Okay, so he uses a fate point to re-roll that, and he gets... we're going to say, to adjust for the point usage, that's a +4. So they have to dodge a +4, or they are going to be boxed in. For Kesha, I'm going to roll her riot thing, to kind of determine how wily she is to get out of this attack. 2, not great. She can invoke one of her +2s, and if she did, then she's using Katie's probability ability to basically get out of this. So she's using that. That means that advantage is gone for this round, and Katie is kind of on her own. Katie is going to use Gambler to try to figure out the best odds of how to dodge this. She can't. So Katie is currently locked in by an automated car. Alkesha manages to get away thanks to Katie's probabilities. And Kavan is apparently he's getting ready to actually have a fight. Now that he's like isolated Katie, he has a +2 to act against her if he wanted, but he may have to pay more attention to Alkesha because Alkesha has still the benefits of Katie's stunts. So the next round begins. We start same order, Alkesha, Katie, and then Kev. So we're going to go through it like that. I'm going to say that Katie has a temporary aspect on her right now. We'll just call it pinned. She is currently pinned by a vehicle. That means that Kev can invoke that freely once, and then if she doesn't free herself, he can invoke that further if he wished. So next round, we begin the fight. The kind of smoke clears. Katie is pinned against sort of like probably a group of other cars or towards a wall. She can't exactly get out, but that's okay. She has technically cover at this point. Something she can invoke if she really wanted to. Alkesha is going to use, again, her left gun and fire off a shot to try and just land a very solid hit on Kev Kavan, getting a +2 to her roll from having her sister, and Kev cannot dodge this. So Kev is going to try to use, he doesn't really have anything to try and get out of that to dodge it so much or to absorb the attack. So we're actually going to say that for the purposes of this, because he can't dodge, how it's going to be narrated then is that he has to use the surrounding area to try and basically put something between himself and the shot, and it has to be close enough that it's a homing shot, so it can't go around him. You know, it has to basically be something he's holding against himself. So for this purpose, he's going to use Detain again as his defensive roll, which he succeeds on. So he gets a 5. He picks up basically a we'll say a garbage can or something. It has to be something very tough. So we'll even say a fire extinguisher or something like that. It manages to grab it, put it up in front of himself, and then the resulting explosion of white gas and powder / force. It doesn't hurt him because he is able to use drift to kind of like change the distribution of force, but it does create like a smoke field that may make it a little bit more difficult for Alkesha to land her next shot. And the reason for that is because he is going to invoke or he's going to basically create a scene aspect by doing so, spending a fate point at this point as sort of a reaction. He is going to create foggy or a smoky environment. From the explosion of the fire extinguisher, now there's an obscuring field of powder between them. Now, Kev technically doesn't have a problem with this because his ability lets him project and figure out spatial differences. The others may have difficulty. We'll see how it goes. So that was Alkesha's turn. Katie is going to try and figure out a way to use the car that she's pinned with against her advantage by using her analyst ability and again trying to get the double rainbow. She manages to not do that. So she is going to again use her fate points, both of them, to one to reroll and one to, we'll see what she gets on the reroll. Yeah, and then 1 to +2. It ends up being the same result of a +4. So we have a +4. She is able to pass that and create double advantage again, which means that now she has rolling advantages on each round. So on the next round, Alkesha now has a 4 she can invoke and then a 2 after. So now you can sort of see how Katie's stunt is very powerful. It lets her create rolling advantages that get stronger like as she succeeds on subsequent rounds, as long as she's still just calculating. So while she's pinned behind this, she begins to scream out the different places where Alkesha should be shooting her shots, and Alkesha's just looking frantically through the fog, trying to see where her crazy ass vet martial artist dad is. So that's what they'll be doing now. So that means on the next round, basically, we'll say on this turn, more or less, Alkesha can invoke a +4 if she'd like. Once she has finished calculating that, now Kev is going to use drift to further push the car towards Katie and create another advantage, but this time targeting Katie. So he invokes that she's pinned for free. That makes this a 7. And then, we'll see what she rolls before he needs to invoke. She is going to roll to protect against this. We'll say wheel and deal as she tries to negotiate her way through this problem, but she can't do it because she can't figure out a way to kind of negotiate the force that's incoming and the fact that this car is quickly coming pinned towards her. So now it's super pinned towards her, and it's not just a fact that she's pinned in, but it's like now restraining her, and in a way that might even make it like, you know, kind of hard for her to breathe or something. So now it's basically a very strong advantage at this point. And now that he has created that advantage with drift, he gets the benefit of his other stunt. So he is going to be able to utilize Deadeye next round. Kesha has the next turn. Seeing that there is powder everywhere and she can't properly make sights on her father, but she has a +4 to her roll. She is going to quickly just go as much as you can sicko mode and actually invoke herself, her prone to make rash decisions trouble, as she begins to just fire in all directions, now fully engaged in sicko mode. This has the risk of ricocheting and hitting Katie. So that's the consequence of her invoking her trouble, but she does get a fate point back for this. We'll see how she does. So she has 1 fate point left. Technically, this is a 2 fate point thing, but she's invoking 1 and getting 1 back. So that means she gets a lot of advantages to this. We'll see what happens. So she has a 4. It has a +4 to that. And then she's invoking twice. So that makes this a 12. And we'll see what happens to Kev. Kev, somewhere hidden in the mist, prepared to strike down Katie with a very precise blow, sees a flurry of laser shots banking around in the powdery smog, you know, just smoky environment. And his eyes widen because he's about to deliver a KO shot, and suddenly it's turned into an actual rave. He is going to try to use also she has a +2, so that's actually a 14 because of her proximity to Katie. So that's a 14 that he's working against there, and they're basically homing shots for the purposes of what he has to do here. So this is a very difficult situation for him. The only thing that he can likely do that makes any sense is try to drift himself into a car. So he goes basically diving towards one of the automated vehicles and uses drift to push in the windshield as he attempts to just dive into it and use it as a mobile bunker. Let's see if he succeeds in this. With a 7, he is going to invoke